really because a lot of us are very curious about what's going on behind the fence. And if you go by on the water, you know, you can't see what's going on inside. And I attended a talk that Nancy gave, and I thought that some of other people would be interested in it too. So I'm glad you're here. Welcome. So let me say that Nancy is originally born here in New Bedford, and she raised her children, left here for 60 years, and came back 4 years ago with her husband, fortunately for us. So I'm going to read her paragraph, which I hope you can hear. I've been photographing the New Bedford fleet almost weekly, and she said to me she's been doing it even since the program that I saw, so we're going to see some more photographs. When the Vineyard Wind 1 project came to town, there was a question of whether 300 and 200-foot towers could be barged out to the grid in an upright position. I needed to find out for myself. Once I visited the terminal site and saw the amazingly choreographed workings of the biggest and first turbine project in North America, I was hooked. I've been down at the hurricane barrier with my camera most days. I've talked to administrators at Vineyard Wind 1, terminal operators, fisheries, BCC training and educators, and met DEME and NYT and New Bedford Light people involved. Now I get updates, trade magazine articles coming into my email daily. September 6th,
2023.
Yeah, okay. There's a typo. 2023 was a thrilling day when the first barge made it through the New Bedford Hurricane Gate. Here we go.
Okay. Thank you, Blair and Marcy and Ann and Michelle and Brian. This will be some of my photos. I have not been able to go out to the site, which I'm itching to do, but maybe that'll happen in the future. So this is a collaboration. This is the New Bedford terminal, the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center collaboration with New Bedford. You are looking at this view is from Gifford Street. If you go down to Gifford Street to the barricade, to the hurricane barricade, this is a view you have if you just walk partway out. It's you'll see the most goings on from there. These are the turbines. The project is going to involve 62 turbines, 13 megawatt turbines that will bring electricity to 400,000 houses. It'll take 1.6 million tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere a year, which is 320,000 cars off the road, the equivalency. The United States is pretty far behind this project. The Europeans have been doing this for 30 years in the North Sea. So it's not new technology, but it's very quickly growing. The turbines are getting bigger, the blades are getting bigger. And so you're seeing a barge and you're seeing partially assembled towers. Here's a different angle. You'll see the barge, which is a feeder barge. It's 400 feet long, 100 feet wide. It's in water outside the bulkhead of New Bedford that's 14 feet deep and 30 feet deep. We'll get a closer picture up. You can see one of the world's tallest cranes that has an enormous lift capacity. It's one of the tallest cranes in the world. It's a Danish crane operated by Canadians. It came down from Canada. That's a ring crane. And the blue ship that you're seeing is one of the two Portuguese vessels that comes in with the turbine parts. They'll unload those two turbine parts. They'll probably have nacelles down underneath that they also load. So right now, the pace has been stepped up. There are blades coming in. The yard is 29 acres, and it can accommodate about 20 turbine parts. So there should be a constant incoming and outgoing Just to give you the scale, I was down there one day and I thought I saw a smudge on one of the towers. And if you look carefully, the tower to the right is a technician, and he's called a rat, which is a rope access technician. And it takes about 3 years of training for someone to be able to be on the outside of the tower to rappel down several hundred feet or be hoisted up. Those technicians, when they have this staging, they're bringing in partially assembled towers, but they need to go out to the site in perfect condition. That's the blades, the nacelles, and the towers. Here you see the blades. The blades are 352 feet long, longer than a football field. They're made of carbon, glass, and resin, and weigh, each of them weighs 65 US tons. This is the nacelle. This is General Electric Haliade X nacelle. This is the gearbox. It's about 4 stories high. It's 40 feet high. You'll see the rotor on the end, and you'll see where the blades, just one blade in this case, but there are 3 to go into that. And this is what turns wind energy to electricity. And that's about 750 tons of weight that's going to go on the barge. Okay. And here you can see a lift bar lifting the nacelle. I just used this photo because there are 2 little people up there just for scale. That's being lifted up, and it'll be put onto the feeder barge that's waiting. This is the United Heavy Lift Fame. It's coming in from Madeira. Portugal is manufacturing, fabricating the tower parts. So this ship, there might be a closer one coming up, but we'll have 2 turbines worth of towers. And they're called, the base one is called T1, the middle one is called T2, and the tippy top is T3. This I'm just showing you because you take a look at the bulkhead. This was built between 2013 and 2015, and that was around the time that last wind project was scuttled. The preparation for this, New Bedford paid about $110 million altogether to build this bulkhead that will last for 75 or 100 years, and it can accommodate enormous weights. You can see some blades, and you see the tall crane. This is a closer look at the Fame. The sister ship is Felicity. Those brown things sticking up are davit cranes. They will unload those towers. The towers are then transported by something called a self-propelled modular transporter, and it is I'd call it a conveyor belt. It'll take those towers, rack them, and you can go down in New Bedford and see plenty of that at the tower, at the terminal. Again, you're looking at one of the tallest cranes in the country. It is a ring crane. There'll be a closer picture of that. It has the enormous lift capacity, and these towers are going to be lifted from the top to be swung around and put onto the waiting barges. At the top of all of the towers, when they upright them, it takes 2 cranes to get them in an upright position. And this, you see a little protective umbrella. And inside there'll be attaching cables and electrical wiring, making sure things are painted properly. There's a special paint that goes on the outside that has zinc in it. So I don't know whether it's a sun protector or what it is, but the cost is exponentially higher to not have these parts go out in perfect condition. And once they come across the Atlantic, they sometimes get roughed up a little bit. So this is the protective umbrella, temporary. You see a helicopter in the background going by just. And here you see one of the upright towers. That is a tower lift bar. It takes 2 cranes to take one of these parts, one of these towers, and put them in an upright position. So you're seeing the crane, you're seeing the umbrella that's got a bit of a hole in it, but coming to protect the parts until they can put a permanent top on it. And here you see the T1 tower, the base tower. This is what it looks like down at the bottom and inside. Out at sea, that will be affixed to a transition piece. That's the base T1 tower. In the yard, T1 and the middle tower, called T2, will be mounted and put onto the barge, and then the top piece, T3, will be put on its own platform. Here's just a closer look at the ring crane. It's on a track that's circular, and it can pivot around in 360 degrees. And if you go down there and hear it a little bit moving, you have to watch and line something up. It moves so slowly that the ability of these operators to snag a tower and take it from the other towers and not hit other towers and swing it around to the bulkhead where usually the barge is. But that's the base of that crane. Okay, here's a General Electric Enable cap. It is what is the permanent placement on top of the tower. You can see 2 little heads, some tag lines hanging down, a box of tools, and this is the way this operates. There's a gigantic bullet-shaped pin that goes to the middle. It forces those hydraulic arms out, or there are bearings in it, and creates enough force. There are probably engineers here. I don't really know how it works, but it forces out. The technicians there will see that it's all secured before they go back down the ladder. There's actually a little door in that piece that they can open and come out and work on the outside, rappel down the outside of the tower. So this is the tower getting ready to be loaded onto the barge. Here's a view from the yard. You'll see the base tower there. You'll see the permanent caps. You see the other side of the crane. And beyond the crane is a loaded rack of blades. 3 blades will go out. Go ahead. And this is just a view of some of the technicians that work here. They have hard hats on. They have headlamps on. The guy on the right has a lot of gear, probably weighing up to 50 pounds of gear. They're all trained. There are union workers there, and they're highly skilled people who are working on this project. And here you see a rack of blades. Now, the blades they're 352 feet long, and they weigh about 65 to 70 tons each. And they're fairly delicate, which is kind of interesting. And this crane is going to move those blades around the towers and onto the barge. So one of the things that fascinated me about this project, when a friend said they can't take these towers that big in an upright position. So I said, well, I saw this drawing and it looked like they were going out in an upright position. So the magic here to me is this green. You can see a green fence. You're seeing the base tower and the midsection being lowered. So you see the edge of the tower being lowered onto these guys. This is a 2-story platform, and it's called a Barge Master, made in the Netherlands. It's a Dutch piece of equipment, and it'll get bolted down, and the Barge Master is designed with thrusters and the role it plays is primarily out at sea. They can take the barges out in the right kind of weather. They need to have no more than 12 knot winds. They need a mile of visibility, and they usually take them out at a slack tide. So this doesn't come into gear, but what I think of it is a gimbal. You know, we have a lot of sailors here, and it keeps the barge and tower in an upright position. Okay, so it can do that. It's very, very important when they get it out to the sea installer out at Martha's Vineyard. Good. Okay, this is the barge being almost fully loaded. There's the tower on the right, the tall one is on the barge. The crane is lifting the final tower, T3, which will go on its own compensating, they call it a dynamic positioner or compensating hydraulics. You can go to the next slide. And here's a little rear view of the blades and the prevailing wind. And as we speak, the 14th tower is going out right now. It should have made the passage at 2 o'clock. Originally, there'd just been one feeder barge. They brought in a second one. And actually, these barges had been towed to Europe so that they were poured with ballast. So if you go down to the dock and you look at the back end, I'm not sure you can see it in this photo, but the empty barge will be tilted so that when they put those towers on and the blades, the barge will be level. Out at sea, particularly, yes, and if the weather gets bad, they can kick in and keep everything level. It's going to be real important when they get the barge out to the sea installers, the Danish ship that's out there right now. So this is the barge that just went out, and now you're seeing a couple of tugboats. And I'll tell you the role of the tugboats in a second. There are two towing tugs, Michelle Foss and the Nicole Foss. These are about 130-foot seagoing tugboats. There's a horsepower of 7,200 horsepower, take 130,000 gallons of fuel, and they're ocean going and can tow just about anything. There are two of them here. Foss Marine has those two, and they have the Hawaii Earl Red and one other that I can't think of right now. But Foss has come here and has a permanent base. One of the attractions to the New Bedford port is that we had no height restrictions. In other words, coming in from the Atlantic, there were no bridges, underpasses, overpasses, wires, and so forth, which made it very attractive to come to a protected harbor. So I think they have made a permanent, they're building a site over by Merrill's restaurant. You'll see all that as a laydown yard. And the Hawaii, which is also a Foss barge, along with the Earl Red, there's one other, the Rebecca is the other one. There are three of them. These are tractor tugs, and I didn't really know what a tractor tug was, but Scott from Foss Marine said to me that the propellers, it's propeller driven, and I think the propellers are moved forward. They can pull and push 360 degrees also. So they're very important in taking the barge off the bulkhead because they can move sideways, they can go backwards. And what they're going to do is take the barge out to the turning basin, which is at the state pier. So you'll see the barge come in, be in front of the state pier, and then the tugboats will change places. Okay. And finally, after they've been out and changed places, this is what the load looks like. Either the Nicole or the Michelle Foss is up front. The escort barges right now are not going to be able to assist in any way. There'll be police boats out and harbor masters. There was one incident where a fishing boat, I just happened to hear it on the radio. It decided to cut this boat off, and no one caught the name, but it was just a game. It was pretty well protected. But Once they're in this position, there's no making any alterations. I'm guessing that they're going out at about 3 knots. They're going out in a slack tide, which means the tide is changing and it's at its calmest. So the times of day will vary. They have to have, as I said before, a mile of visibility, so fog is a big issue, and wind under 12 knots. And here is the gate opening to the barricade. The barge itself is 400 feet long and it's 100 feet wide. The gate opening is 150 feet wide. That means when that barge gets going, these tugboats get going, there's no room for error. It's threading a needle. They have 25 feet on either side, and they sometimes use up a lot of that. So it is, here's my friend Bob O'Connor with a, what do you call it, a drone, offered to let me use his picture. He's a photographer for the New York Times. We all met down there on that first opening day. And this is the prevailing wind, the one that's the barge that just went out. It's fun to take photos of red barges versus black barges. And you can now see, I don't know whether this is the Michelle Foss. They're all lined up. They're committed. There's a short towing line from the towing tug, and the tractor tug is tied right up to the stern end of the barge as it's going out. So it could probably do a little emergency turn. And one of the extra problems they have is that the forward tugboat creates its own backwash with the power it has. Okay, I was standing at the barge. This is the first tower to go out. The Europeans were all assembled. There were trucks that were pulled up. Multiple languages were being spoken, and everybody had their fingers crossed and cheered when this first barge went through. Those are the blade racks, and you can see how close it is to the gate. And this is the iconic picture taken by Antonio Beltran. You've probably seen it in the New Bedford Light. I got permission to use it. And this is the aerial photo. You'll see this over and over again, and it's a tight squeeze. Right? It's a tight squeeze. And if you look to the bottom left, you'll see the trucks. And then some of us are as far as we could go up at the gate, and they're Lilliputian people that are watching the event. So everybody cheered. Someone yelled out, 1 down, 61 to go. And so this is the journey. This is the first tower out. Now we're looking into the sun. They're going to pass through Buzzards Bay. Somewhere along the line, the back tug, the tractor tug, will fall off, and the towing tug will lengthen its line. So when you see it out in Buzzards Bay, it almost looks like the tugboat has nothing to do with the barge. So this journey is going to be this is a 35-mile journey. It takes them about 3.5 hours to do it. They're going to go out past Cutty Hunk, leaving Martha's Vineyard on the left, and come in through the 12 to 15 mile lease area that has been Vineyard Wind 1. Go out past Cutty Hunk, leaving Martha's Vineyard on the left, and then coming in from the south. Here, this is what you'll see today or in the future. The tugboat is pretty far away from the barge. It's loaded. And some of you may have seen this barge sitting out in the harbor outside of the gate for a week or so in the last couple of weeks. There were some issues. So this is just a quick view of the lease area. And today I counted, I have a little app that this is old, but it varies all the time. The little square blue thing in the middle is the Sea Installer, which is a Danish ship about 450 feet long. It has a crane. It is all set up. It's a jack ship, which means it puts 4 legs down into the water and can raise itself up. And last week when you saw the barge out front, this area was almost empty. And so it's raised some questions. But the other vehicles in the area are tugboats, support boats. There's a hospital ship out there. There are research vessels out there. There are fishing vessels out there. Keep that in mind. And Vineyard Wind has hired multiple fishing vessels to go out there for safety, security, surveillance. There are whale watchers out there, and you can flip the switch. This is today you'd see 24 other vessels out there, mostly American flagged, because the sea installer itself, which is a Danish ship, and any other European ships, because of the Jones Act of 1920, cannot come in to a U.S. base, which is an expensive way of doing things. Here is what a photo of the sea installer. It's not mine. I got permission to use it. That is the vessel that is going to do the final assembly of the turbines on top of a monopile that has already been driven into the water. And so if you look at this photo, that yellow piece that's under the tower that's called AU-39 is an 87-foot high transition piece. It has been mounted on a monopile which has been driven into the sea. The height of the water out there is about 129 feet. And there's a Belgian ship that is doing the monopiles. Right now there's a sister ship to this one called the Sea Challenger, and it is assembling the transition pieces because they're doing some catch up. They're now going to work 24 hours a day to get this put together. Let's hold on for a minute. So here you see the blades are aboard, the nacelle. So this ship puts the last tower, T3, on top of T1, T2. It hoists the nacelle up to the top, and then the final thing is to put the blades on. There are 90 people living aboard. They work 24 hours a day when they unload the vessel. And when the barge comes up against this is where the compensating hydraulics kick in, because it can be rough out there, and for safety reasons, they have to have a perfectly still vessel. At the top of the crane, there's it looks like a frog or a punching bag. There's something called a sequelizer, and that is a quick heaving device. Again, I think it's made by the Dutch. And what they will do is release the compensating hydraulics, and this heaving device pops, it heaves the towers on all the parts out up to 9 feet high, almost jettisons out of the barge. So once this sea installer can lift itself up pretty high, someone said as much as 50 feet, and there had been a vessel out there called the Jones Act installer that came from Louisiana, and there was some playing around there because they were looking for violations of the Jones Act and came too close. There's a perimeter while they're working that you're not supposed to violate, but it happens. The Coast Guard was made aware, and they came, and he hasn't been back since. This is, I get a chart like this, a little graph like this, every week from the head of fisheries, and Krista Bank puts it out. What you're seeing, the little black dots, are where turbines are going to be placed. If you can see little yellow ones, they've got the transition pieces are on. The white ones, the monopiles, have been driven. So you just can get a weekly update, whether there's 12 working or whatever. There are, out at sea, there's been, the Italian vessels have installed the array cables that go into Barnstable. The cables that go ashore have been put in. So it's just a question of getting these things hooked up right now. And this is a picture of the Orion. It's a Belgian ship. They're a pile driver. We were in Halifax just on an incidental vacation, and I looked across the harbor and saw something that looked like transition pieces. I couldn't tell. I had to take a picture of it and then look at it at home. And sure enough, it was the monopiles for this project and the transition pieces. They're coming from Europe. They're being brought to Halifax. They can't come to the United States. So the Orion, which is a Belgian flagged ship, has to go to Halifax, and that means offloading people, or they can't come to shore. And they'll pick up the pieces. There's usually 6 at a time. And the Orion, which is now in, is it Portsmouth, Virginia, that they're doing the next project? Dominion's doing the Virginia project. So it's down there. It will come back to drive the next piles. Okay, this is the controversy that you're probably, the save the whales, the sound, the pile driving is killing whales, it's killing marine life. The Vineyard Wind, I think, has been very transparent, and they have, they're doing everything possible. There are whale watchers out there, there's surveillance out there, but this is an example of pile driving. And what is done is the pile is filled with water, surrounded by rocks at the base. They're driving it in, and there is tubing, a perforated tubing that goes out 500 to 700 meters that's filled with holes. And a boat comes by with compressed air, forces the compressed air into this tubing, and it creates a wall of bubbles, and the bubbles are soundproofing material. The bubbles are soundproofing. There's another thing that is dropped over, and I'll describe it as a circular shower curtain, which is filled with baffling to protect sound. That's put over it, and recently they've added a collar to the top of the monopile with more soundproofing. It's supposed to be about 70 to 75% effective, but I just wanted to show you that because there's a lot of controversy to this, that this is a good excuse for the naysayers to say we can't do this, we're killing whales. This thing is called a passive acoustic monitor. There are 3 or 4 of them out there. There's microphones on them. These things are listening for whale vocalizations. They can hear them from far away, in which case there's no pile driving. So for example, since December 30th to now, to this very week, they have not driven any piles because it's been the migration of the whales. Today I counted, I think, 7. I have an app that tells you how many whales are in the area. And and they've just done another thing for sharks, marlin, and tuna coming in with pop-up buoys, probably at the base of these buoys. So there's a lot of scientific stuff going on and a lot of protection for the marine life. Oops, and this is a humpback whale. I saw this in Prince Edward Island. We went on a whale watch, and probably the technology for the bubble curtain to blow bubbles came from these humpback whales, because they fish and feed together, and when they're feeding, they circle, blow bubbles, and that keeps the herring from getting outside of the wall of bubbles. And a lot of the technology is coming from some of these animals. And here you have a closer look at the transition piece. So the monopile has been driven by the Orion. The Sea Challenger is out now putting those transition pieces, and you see a little white tent up there that'll be taken off. And now the 3-part turbine will be mounted. And remember, this is at least 803 feet, 830 feet taller than the Hancock Building in Boston, and it's taller than the Eiffel Tower, just to give you some scale. The blade, one turn of the blade on this 13 megawatt turbine will electrify a house for 48 hours. And the blades spin between 8 and 20 times per hour. There's automatic shutoffs in the nacelle if migratory birds are coming by. There are a lot of safety mechanisms in place. It's not foolproof, of course, but so the last thing is, this is the last blade being mounted into the hub. You see the hub. Inside the tower, there are 500 stairs, and I met one of the millwrights there who she works the night shift, 12 hours at night, and she climbs with about a 50-pound load. She climbs up a ladder, 500 steps, and she spends the night probably with a teammate, and they call it stretching bolts, bolting in 260 bolts to secure these blades. And once that is done, the turbine is ready to be connected to the cable, the array cable, and the for shore power. And to date, there are probably 13 connected. Number 14 went out today, and as I said, there are going to be 62 altogether. So this is, you know, another. I didn't take this because, of course, they don't let me out there yet, but I'm working on it. So now you see the sea installer. You can see the height of its crane. It is going to lower itself back down to the water and sail on to the next monopile and assemble the next tower. So all in all, there should be 62 of them and providing electricity for 413,000 houses. So coming back to New Bedford, I love seeing all this, and the question that probably is on everybody's mind here is this wind industry here to stay? Of course, you know, you have a project, and once it's finished, they're going to move on to the next project. And right now, Salem, Massachusetts is building, I'll say a 40-acre yard terminal. It might be more than that, I might be wrong. Brookline has one, New London's got one. They're being built all across the coast. The United States, through the Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, has been encouraging through the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and assigning leases. For example, Maine is about to get a 2 million acre, the Gulf of Maine has been allotted to Mitsubishi for a, I think it's going to be a 2 gigawatt project. Right now, Vineyard Wind has temporarily, I think they're going to call themselves Vineyard Wind 2. I have some charts, but the bidding process in New York last week was supposed to be based on 18 megawatts. These towers are 13 megawatts. They could go to 15 megawatts pretty safely on the same towers. It's not quite sure whether this tower can support 18 megawatts. So they bid on the projects, and then they said, but we'll only bid for 15 megawatts. So the next projects we'll see will be bigger, and that's kind of my pitch. Right? So if anybody has a question, I'll be happy to. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Is the top of the tower, is there housing in there? Are people going to live in there? You said it was
No.
4 stories high?
No.
No. The head of it,
The nacelle and the
top.
the hub. No,
So
they're just stairs. There are platforms
okay.
along the
So
way.
it's going to, like, the maintenance people won't
No,
live in
maintenance people, and that's what will happen in New Bedford. We'll have maintenance and operations. We'll have we have a good educational system. You know, Maersk, the what do you call them? The shipping containers. Thank you. They have coordinated with Bristol Community College. They have built the National Offshore Wind Institute on Herman Melville Avenue. They will train anybody who you can either pay, or Ørsted will pay, or this one will pay for training. And this is where you they'll have a helicopter simulator, because part of the training is you have to go down and be submerged and figure out how to push out the window And one of the other photographers, who's a friend, said he paid $8,000 to do the training, and he's the demi photographer, which are the developers out there. So it's there are a lot of things I think coming to New Bedford, but there might be a lull, and we might not see these towers again. Jeff?
Hi, Nancy. Do you know what the blades are made of? Is it
Yeah,
fiberglass or
they're made of carbon, glass, and resin, fiberglass. They're fairly delicate. Those are the things that if they get struck by lightning or birds, they're going to get damaged. So there will be vessels going out. Martha's Vineyard got the maintenance contract, but it's probably a smaller operation, and some of that could probably come here. And again, in New Bedford, Liftra, which is the Danish crane makers, there's a big demand for cranes. It looks like they have a spot on the other end of the barricade to build a facility.
And do they know when they're going to finish the 65?
Yeah, well, the contract goes to the end of December. I believe they have a 90-day add-on to it. And the other company that had a contract to come in is Ørsted. They're the big guys. And by the way, for people who are saying they can't, this is clean energy and what's happening to fossil fuel energy, and the lawsuits for a lot of these NIMBY people are backed by the fossil fuel industry. But the fossil fuel industry is in here, and they're either taking write-offs or they're participating because they know the next big thing coming is going to be wind energy. It's not going to be the all-time fix-it, but for the next 20 years, the contracts are here and are being awarded out. None of them are firm until, yes?
Yeah, are each individual one operating by themselves, or are they interconnected?
They're all interconnected. I mean, they're all, yes, but I imagine they can adjust. So there's a yaw and a pitch system. The blades can be turned. The whole rotor can be moved, but I think that's all done.
Then is there like
push
a
button.
master board? Is there like a master board?
Yeah, I think about 150 miles of cable have been laid to go into. Yes?
What animal nonprofit is involved here? Or
Well, I know there's something called ACK. There are several of them. There's Green Oceans that are sending someone around. Brown University did a study that debunked just about everything this woman and this team said, and when you look where they live on the water. There's Newport, there's Rhode Island. We don't want it in our backyard. There's a group called the Bananas, and it's build absolutely nothing anytime near anyone. So but if you look at all of those places that are saying we're killing whales, we're killing, marine life, and we want ask these people what they would substitute wind energy for, and they don't have an answer. So the coal industry is particularly, because that's one of the filthiest greenhouse emissions, fossil fuels, and natural gas is a little bit better. But I think that two things are happening. They're willing to invest in these companies for a write-off, or they're hedging their bets and want to be involved because they will see that we need more energy. Yes?
How are these monitored? Is there something like a control tower or like a lighthouse keeper or something that goes out there?
Well, there are ships out there that are monitoring everything. I mean, surveillance ships, scientific ships. The fishermen are being hired to go out there to do some of the safety and security.
When the project is done.
Well, that will then become operations and maintenance, and they'll have a facility. They're looking at the state pier to open. General Electric Verona has moved its headquarters to Cambridge. So the blades that came from Les Nazirs, France, it would make sense to manufacture blades here. But we don't have the ships. One ship, the Charybdis, is being built in Texas. It won't be ready till next year. It's going to Dominion, which is an electric company. And so if you look at the partnerships, you'll see that British Petroleum is taking over one of these leases. So you have to decide for yourself why they're in it. Yes?
I think in the beginning you said you were getting information regularly that let you monitor what was going on. Are there sources that are public?
Sure, everything's public. If you go to www.vineyardwind1, there's tons of information. I go down on Thursday afternoons at 3 o'clock, not all the time. I mean, I try to go down. They'll tell you anything. They've been very transparent, and I think they've been very responsible because, of course, they want the next lease. And this was the first biggest commercial offshore wind project to start here in New Bedford in the United States. And now that the business has really exploded.
I want to keep it here.
Keep it here. Well, we want to keep something here.
Nancy, has Mass Maritime given an opportunity to get involved with this?
I think they're all involved.
They are?
I can't tell you specifically where they're involved, but they're compensating fishermen. If fishermen by June 3rd can show documents at how many fish they've lost or how many, the lobsters and scallops is this huge business in New Bedford, but they can't just decide that, I didn't fish this year because of some other problem and collect. So they have to have documentation that says, Helen.
On the other side of that issue, how has the, shall we say, the hiring been very lively in New Bedford? Are there a lot of guys working?
The Vineyard Wind projected something called FTE, full-time equivalents. And that is, they projected there'd be 3,600 jobs over the next 20 years brought to this project. I don't know what that means, to tell you the truth, because, but again, this is becoming a global project. If we can get in on the educational aspect, if we can get into manufacturing cranes, I think the bubble curtain people had some kind of contract to come in. And they manufacture in Connecticut.
Good news for the city.
Well, I think over time. So when these towers leave, because they'll go to a bigger place with more towers, more. I know the Maine project is planning on doing floating turbines because the water's deeper out in the Gulf of Maine, and so they're designing and testing floating turbines. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested in a potential hurricane of Category 5 and how that will impact these particular.
This was a question about how does hurricanes impact the towers. There are typhoons. The North Sea has been building these things for 30 years, so they have tested them. What?
Isn't that oil, or is it?
No, the wind turbines that they're putting in, but
okay.
they too came from, like Ørsted used to be called Dong, and Dong is the Danish oil and natural gas company, and they had some oil leases out in the North Sea, and they decided let's try these turbines and do clean energy and see what we can come up with.
They can feather the boat.
They can feather the blades. They will stop at when the wind is 55 miles an hour.
So they'll just turn off the machine.
They'll turn off. I mean, it's.
Has any electricity gone to the
Yes.
Cape yet?
Yes.
And you say it's going into Barnstable?
It's going into Coville Beach in Barnstable, and that had been prearranged. And Vineyard Wind did another nice thing. Barnstable had to dig up their streets for sewage, so Vineyard Wind did it, and they laid the cables to I think to Hyannis.
And which houses are they? Is
I don't know. You know, what this does is it goes into a substation, and it's all mixed. The electricity is there. But
where's the payback for this? Is it through the electrical?
Well, they say that the end user price has already been established in the original purchase price agreement.
Okay.
And so on this, they might lose money. I think the projection of earning money, they thought they could do it in 5 years. It might be stretched out to 10 or 12 years now. But overall, supposedly, it's a savings of $1.4 billion.
So they could save money by getting rid of that Jones Act. You mentioned that the ships have to
Yeah,
go all over
well,
the place.
right, and, yeah, right. I mean, that's a good one. Yes?
Very oftentimes when the barges come out and get out the Winnebago Bay.
Well, sometimes there's a barge in and a heavy lift vehicle bringing in supplies, so there's no room at the bulkhead. So they can move it outside, and usually they have a tug babysitting for it. But I did see one the other day. You know, one's been out there for a couple of weeks, and you know, there'll be glitches in the program. But I think now that they're going to work 24 hours a day, you'll see many more barges coming and going, and
I was just gonna say, if somebody hasn't been out to actually go to the hurricane barrier to see one of these barges go through, it is totally mind-boggling.
it really is. I mean, the pictures don't do it justice.
You can sign up with the Port Authority to get notifications as to when the barges are coming.
Yes,
in and out.
you can ask the Port Authority to notify you. So I got a
Authority
notice.
of what?
The New Bedford Port Authority. Gordon Carr is ahead of that. Ask them, and
I didn't know they had a port authority.
no, we do. We have a port authority now. We're getting really sophisticated, and they will notify you incoming and outgoing through the gate of these large
You should
vessels.
start selling tickets for it.
That's right.
There needs to be a little tourist.
What? I can't hear you.
There are two ways to walk out to the barrier. One is from New Bedford, and it's a very long walk.
And
The other
is-
is from Fort Phoenix.
Yes, and it's a short walk. So if you want to drive down to,
You can't see the barge as well from there, so you have to choose.
What about the other city?
well, it's, if you're taking pictures, it's a matter of how, you know, the light in your eyes.
Fairhaven, you can see it.
Yeah, Fairhaven, yes. So you can, that's a shorter walk to go down to Fort
Park
Phoenix.
there and-
I wonder about the security with these barges coming in and out, and for this whole project, when I'm looking at what
Well,
awful things
when
might
this,
happen.
when these barge goes out, there are police boats, the harbor master, there's a lot of attendees circling the
even
barge.
aerial, I would
Yeah.
think, you know.
No,
because
I
it's
think
not
they're, I think.
The whales will be protesting.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm thinking
One
of
more
the
question, I think, you're anxious to
Not
go.
whales.
The barges are pointed into New Bedford, so they have to, they tow them, you know, they tow them down and have to turn them.
Right,
So they go down into the center of the harbor, and then
right.
the tug
There,
pushes them
there's a
around.
channel that's shaped like this. So any incoming vessel has to stay in that 30-foot channel, get to the state pier where it's deep enough in a circle to turn them around, and then they back them into the bulkhead at the terminal. And the reverse is true too. They use the tractor tugs to get them out backwards, turn them around, put new tugs on, and tug them out through the gate. So I hope that covers some of the stuff you wanted. And
That's excellent.